Chosen one, I need you to hear something today that I have been waiting to say to you for a long time. You passed the test. Not barely, not by the skin of your teeth. You passed it the way someone passes a test when they were built for exactly what the test required. And I know you did not feel like you were passing while you were in the middle of it. I know it felt like failing, like barely surviving, like holding on with everything you had just to make it through one more day without completely falling apart. But that is exactly what passing looked like for the season I walked you through. And I need you to know that what you endured was not random. It was not punishment. It was preparation, and it is finished. The storm is not still coming. You already walked through it. What you are standing in right now, this strange quiet that does not quite feel like peace yet because you are still waiting for the next hard thing to hit, that quiet is the other side. You made it. And I have been waiting for this moment to tell you what comes next. Stay with me, because what I am about to say will change the way you see everything that just happened to you. My child, let me take you back inside the storm for a moment, not to relive the pain of it, but to show you what I was actually doing while you were inside of it, because what you experienced and what was actually happening were two very different things, and you deserve to know the truth about it. You felt alone inside that storm. There were nights when the silence felt like abandonment, when you prayed and nothing came back that felt like an answer, when you watched other people's lives continue normally while yours was being shaken in ways that no one around you could fully see or understand. You carried that in private, the specific loneliness of going through something real while having to show up to ordinary life as if the shaking was not happening. I was in every one of those nights, not watching from a distance, present. The reason you made it through the morning after the worst nights was not your own strength alone. I was sustaining you in ways that were invisible, because the season required something from you that required your own strength to be engaged, and stepping in too visibly would have robbed you of what the test was building. But I was there, every moment of it. Your name was before me constantly. What I was doing inside that storm was far more significant than what the storm looked like from the outside. I was removing things from your life that would have limited what I am about to release into it. Some of those things you would not have let go of voluntarily because they were familiar, even though they were costing you. I had to allow the storm to loosen your grip on them, not cruelly, lovingly, the way a surgeon causes temporary pain to remove something that would have caused permanent damage if it stayed. I was also building something in you that cannot be built any other way, a depth of trust that only forms when trust is tested over a long stretch of time with no visible evidence that it is justified. Easy seasons do not build that, only the hard ones do. And what was built in you through what you endured is something I am going to use significantly in the season that is opening now. You are not the same person who walked into that storm. The version of you standing on the other side of it is more capable, more grounded, more aligned with who I created you to be than the version that entered it. The storm did not damage you, it finished you. There is a difference between something that breaks a person and something that completes them. What you just walked through was the latter. My beloved, I want to speak to the specific ways you passed this test because I think you need to hear them named. You kept choosing integrity when compromise would have been so much easier. When the pressure mounted and the easier path was right there and taking it would have cost you almost nothing in the short term, you stayed on the harder road because something in you knew it was the right one. You did that more times than you realize, and each time you did it mattered. You kept showing up for people even when you were running on empty yourself. There were seasons inside this storm when you had nothing left and you still found something to give to the people around you who needed it. That is not nothing. That is a reflection of something I placed inside of you that the storm was not able to touch, the capacity to love beyond your own reserves. That is rare, and it is something I honor. You kept believing, even when belief felt foolish. Even when the evidence was pointing every direction but toward what you were trusting me for, you held on. Quietly, and sometimes barely, but you held on. And that holding on, that stubborn, unreasonable faith that stayed alive even when everything logical said it should have died, that is what this entire test was designed to reveal. Not to me, I already knew it was in you. To you, so that you would know it too. You know things about yourself now that you did not know before the storm. You know what you are made of. You know that you can endure things you thought would break you. You know that my voice is real because you heard it in the middle of conditions designed to drown it out. You know that the faith you carry is not theoretical. It has been tested under real pressure, and it held. That knowledge is part of what I saved for you on the other side of this. Not just external reward, a deeper knowing of who you are and who I made you to be. Carry that. It is yours, and the storm paid for it. My precious one, let me talk about what the enemy was trying to accomplish through this season, because understanding his strategy helps you see clearly why what you did was so significant. His goal was never simply to cause you pain. Pain was the tool, not the objective. The objective was to get you to walk away from what I placed inside of you, to convince you through sustained difficulty that the calling was a mistake, that the faith was naive, that the version of your life you had been believing for was a fantasy that needed to be let go of so you could settle into something smaller and more realistic. He used the length of the storm deliberately. He knows that time is one of the most effective tools against faith. A person can endure almost anything short-term. It is the long seasons that test what is actually inside of them. He stretched this out because he was counting on the accumulation of difficulty wearing down your belief in what I promised before I had the chance to deliver it. You outlasted his strategy. You are still here, still believing, still standing on the other side of a season that was designed to end you before you arrived at what I had waiting. And because you outlasted it, what he tried to prevent is now exactly what is about to happen. Everything he was working against in your life is about to come to pass. The things he fought hardest to keep from you are the things I am now releasing. He lost, and you need to understand that fully, not as pride, but as clarity. The one who stood against you in this season did not win, and what comes next is the evidence of his defeat. Type Amen if you feel that truth landing somewhere real in you right now. This moment deserves a response. My child, now I want to talk about the reward. Not in vague terms, not in the language of general blessing that sounds good but does not touch anything specific. I want to talk about what I have actually been saving for you and why the timing of it required everything that came before. The reward is not separate from the storm. It was built inside of it. Everything you went through was simultaneously the test and the construction site for what comes next. The suffering was not just something you had to get through before the good part. It was the material I used to build the good part. This is one of the things about the way I work that is hardest to understand from inside a season of difficulty, but that becomes clearer on the other side of it. Joseph understood this. He could not have understood it from inside the pit or from inside the prison, but from the place of authority he eventually stood in, from the position where he was saving nations and reuniting with the family that had betrayed him, he said to his brothers, "What you meant for evil, God meant for good." Genesis 50:20. Not that the evil was not real, not that the suffering was not genuine, but that what was intended to destroy him was being used to position him. Every terrible thing was a step in a staircase leading somewhere his betrayers never intended him to arrive. Your storm was not different from his in the way that matters most. What was sent against you was used by me for you, and where you are standing now is not where the enemy intended you to end up. It is where I always intended you to arrive. So what does the reward actually look like for your life? Let me be specific. There is a peace coming that you have not felt before. Not the temporary relief that comes when a hard circumstance finally resolves. A settled, deep, unshakable peace that is not dependent on anything on the outside staying a certain way. The kind of peace that Paul wrote about from inside a prison. The peace that surpasses understanding, that guards your heart and mind. Philippians 4:7. That peace is not something I give to people who have not needed it yet. It is something that comes to the ones who have been through enough to know that it is not manufactured by circumstances. It is given by presence, my presence. And my presence is what you are going to feel more clearly in this new season than you have in any season before. There is provision coming to areas where the storm created real lack. I do not restore partially. What I restore completely. The things that were lost during the difficulty, the things that the shaking took with it, are not gone from my hands, even when they looked gone from yours. I am a God who restores what the locusts have eaten, Joel 2:25. Not some of it, what the locusts have eaten. That is a comprehensive restoration, and it is moving toward your life right now. There is clarity coming about your purpose and direction that the fog of the storm obscured. One of the things difficulty does is make it hard to see clearly. When you are in survival mode, the vision gets narrow. You lose sight of the bigger picture because all of your resources are going toward getting through the immediate moment. But that narrowing was temporary. The storm is over, and the field of vision is expanding again. And what you are going to see as it expands is a clarity about your calling and your next steps that is more specific and more actionable than anything you have had access to before. My beloved, I also want to tell you about the connections that are part of your reward, because relationships are not separate from what I give. They are central to it. The people who are meant to walk with you into this new season are not the same as the people who walked with you through the storm. Some of them are, but some of the most significant relationships that are coming were not in your life before because they belong to the version of you that the storm built. They are coming toward the person you became through what you endured, not toward the person you were before you entered it. You are going to recognize them quickly. There will be a quality of resonance in these connections that feels different from what you have been used to. A sense of being fully seen without needing to explain yourself. A comfort in being known that does not require you to perform or manage how you are perceived. These people are being sent, and they are close. My child, I need to address something about how you receive this reward, because how you receive it matters as much as the reward itself. There is a tendency in people who have been through long, hard seasons to receive what comes after with one hand, while the other hand is braced for the next difficulty. To enjoy the good while part of them is waiting for it to be taken. To hold the blessing loosely out of a self-protective fear that it will not stay, that if they let themselves fully receive it and then it goes, the going will be worse than if they had never held it all the way. I understand why that happens.
After a storm like the one you walked through, a certain guardedness is a natural response. But I need you to hear this. What I am releasing into your life in this season is not temporary. It is not a break between hard seasons. It is the fulfillment of what I promised before the storm began. Receive it with both hands open. Receive it fully. Let yourself be moved by it. Let yourself feel the joy of it without cutting the joy short out of fear that feeling it will somehow cost you later. Joy received fully honors me more than joy held carefully, and you have earned the right to receive this one fully. There is one more thing I want to say to you before this message closes, and it is the most important thing I will say. Do not waste what the storm built in you by going back to who you were before it. I do not mean forget where you came from. I mean, do not slide back into the patterns and the postures and the small version of your faith that the storm was designed to break you out of. The tested version of you, the one who is standing on the other side of this right now, is the version I need for what comes next. Stay in that version. Walk from that place. Let the depth that was built in you be the ground you operate from going forward. You know things now that you did not know before, about yourself, about me, about what faith actually is when it has nowhere comfortable to rest. Do not let that knowing get soft. It is one of the most valuable things you carry, and it was paid for at a price that deserves to be honored. The test is over, the reward is here, and the life I designed for you before you were born is not a future possibility. It is the present reality you are walking into right now. As it is written, blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. James 1:12. You stood the test. The crown is yours. Wear it, not with arrogance, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows what it cost and who gave it to them. Share this with someone who is still inside their storm and needs to know that the other side is real and that what is waiting there is worth every moment of the endurance. They need to hear it from someone who believes it, and you believe it now because you are standing in it. Subscribe and stay close, because what comes next in this season was made for the ones who made it through, and you made it through.